Okay, so the demo today will cover basic techniques in QGIS, and I'll start with a very basic overview of the interface and the idea of what a GIS system is, and go through the making of this map. So this is a map of Shenzhen apartment rental listings, and I don't know if you can see this, but the circle size denotes the number of listings, so the density, and the color of the circle denotes the average price in that area. So I'm going to go through all the techniques, both working with data and also a little bit of spatial processing to get this kind of map. So the end result will be something exactly like this. QGIS is the kind of predominant open source GIS system right now. And GIS stands for Graphic Information Systems. It's really a way to work with geographic data, and it's built specifically for working with geographic data and all of the difficulties that come from trying to represent data at a large scale, which is on a round object, and representing that on a flat screen. This is the fundamental difference between GIS and something like Rhino or AutoCAD, and why we use GIS is because at the scale of a building, the curvature of the earth is pretty negligible, right? So it doesn't really matter if we represent all these points accurately. We don't get into projection issues with the scale of a building. Once you get to the scale of a city, you can possibly do things in AutoCAD. But if you get to the scale of a country or the world, the curvature of the earth becomes a significant issue. And that's what GIS is really built around. The way that coordinates are stored in GIS files, like shape files, are always referenced directly to the world. And there's two ways that it can reference. One is with latitude, longitude, so those are called geographic coordinates. And I think you guys all know how latitude, longitude work. So they're always, all the data is referenced to those geographic coordinates. When you see the map pop up on the screen, that's actually a projection. And these projections are running all the time, basically translating from polar coordinates referenced on a sphere into a flattened image. So that's really the first fundamental difference. And when people are like, well, why are we using, a lot of architects are used to using drafting software. Why do we have to use GIS? It's much easier to kind of work with lines and things in AutoCAD. That's really why, because everything is not just a line, it's a feature that's linked to a geography always. And the second fundamental feature of GIS is data. So everything you see on the screen in the map, every line, point, or polygon is a feature that has data associated with it. Not just geographical data, but other data as well. So it's really, the I in GIS is super important. A lot of people, when they start using something like ArcGIS, they think it's a mapping tool. It's really not. It's a spatial data and information processing tool. So we'll get into some of those features already today of how you can use GIS to figure out things about your data. So you can do things like search by location, try to figure out what's within a certain radius. A lot of planners use it for things like traffic studies or proximity to train stations and things like this. So you can do all of that with ArcGIS, and similar tools exist in QGIS. Now QGIS, because it's open source, it's a slightly different type of software than ArcGIS. ArcGIS is super expensive, and it's been developed over the last few decades to be super comprehensive. QGIS is open source. It's become a lot more robust and effective over the years, but it's still a fairly light program, and a lot of the features that you'd find in ArcGIS exist for QGIS, but they come as separate libraries and separate plugins. This is similar to how Python works. You install the kind of core program, which has some processing already in it, but other things like if you're doing road routing or things like that already built into ArcGIS, you have to install those as separate plugins. But most everything you can do in ArcGIS, you should be able to do in QGIS as well. The interface is basically, it's really similar to what you would find in a drawing program like Rhino or AutoCAD. You have this window where you see all your geometry. Here there's a layer pane where you have every geographic layer will be separated here.